Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Love Queendom. This is a space of love and joy and peace and abundance and all the good things. And here at the Love Queendom, we talk about spiritual ascension and how to create your own reality. And today, I had a realization that I haven't done a manifestation story time in a minute. I think I've only posted one so far on my platform. And, being that a major theme of my platform is creating your own reality, and creating your own reality also involves manifesting and materializing the things that you want to experience or have into your reality. I need to share more stories of examples of when I've done this before in the past so that you guys know I actually know how to do this. Okay, and I'm not just a phony baloney saying stuff on the internet that I have not done before. Okay. And I also think that when I look back on a lot of the things that I've been able to materialize in my reality, it gives me kind of confidence to know that I actually can consciously create other things that haven't materialized yet. And also when I look back at some of my big manifestations, like I would say my biggest one is a house purchase that I did in 2021. Let's say 2020 going into 2021. I bought a house. And that actually was something that I had written on my goals or things that I wanted to manifest since probably 2018. It was on my 2018 goals to buy a house. And it didn't end up materializing until 2021 finally. That was when I closed and everything, right? So sometimes manifestations do take time, and like you may try to materialize something and it doesn't work out for you. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get it. It just means that this is not the way the universe thinks that you should have this thing in terms of like your highest timeline, the best way that you could have it, the best version of this thing that you could have, right? May not be that. And so I think that's important for us to remember. But like I said, I do have a track record of like manifesting big things. I did a story time about my job, which now pays me $100,000. And I don't really work that much, like I do work, but I don't know what other job I could get that really leverages my natural skills and abilities so well, and gives me like such good work-life balance in the sense that, I can take a nap during the day if I need to. I can do errands and groceries if I need to. And like, if I have to do my work during the evening, just to like get it done on time or whatever, like I have the freedom to do that, and there aren't even any like real deadlines with my job. Like there are, but there's not really. So it's kind of a very unique job, right? But what I feel is that this job was created for me, okay? And it came at like the exact perfect time that I needed it. So if you want to know about that job manifestation, I'll link it below, but it's also part of my manifestations playlist. So go and check that out. But I've been rambling long enough, okay? And the purpose of this episode is how I was able to manifest my dream condo with no job. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys how I did that. And by the way, you guys, I've actually done this not just once, but twice. Okay, so the condo that I'm living in right now, which is a condo that I'm renting. Okay, these are all condos that I've rented. I also manifested this condo that I live in right now. And this condo is actually like an upgrade from the original condo that I manifested. But today's story time is going to be about the first condo that I manifested without a job. And then I'll do another story time later to tell you guys about the condo that I live in now and how I manifested that one. And I will also do a story time about how I manifested my house too. Because that one I think is like the craziest one. And I love that one so much. Like when that happened, that was actually like when I knew this stuff is actually real, you know, or I was really starting to believe that, damn, like this stuff is actually real, right? And I think this is also why it's easy for me to like share things that haven't fully materialized in my reality yet, because I know I can do it. I've done it before several times, right? So I'm not really like afraid or scared that I can't do it. So I don't want to talk about it until it's fully materialized. Like, no, guys, you know, if you are fully confident in your abilities as a conscious creator, there's nothing that you declare that won't come to pass if you truly believe in yourself as a conscious creator. Okay. So, you know, keep staying plugged into my manifestations list. Okay. Because there's going to be more coming. I just don't know when. Okay. Because we're working with the divine. But let's go into the story. So it all starts in 2017. Okay. Now, I live in Toronto, Canada, but my family, well, I've said this on my platform before. My family is originally from Nigeria, okay? But most of my family lives in another city in Canada, okay? And so I grew up in that city and whatever. And basically what happened was 2016 to 2017, I decided after I finished university that I was going to go and do a year abroad in South America. So I was living in South America for a year. I was teaching English, just kind of, you know, doing my own thing, having a experience of living my life and being adventurous. And then 2017, I decided to come back to Canada. I knew that, you know, the time of my adventure had come to an end. I needed to come back to my real life and really just be stable and build my future. Okay. So, when I was in South America, my older brother had actually moved to Toronto from our hometown. So he was in Toronto and I had actually lived in Toronto, previously, like, let's say when I was like 19, 20, I lived here for like 10 months just to kind of see, like I took some time off of university at the time to see when I'm done school, is this where I actually want to be, right? Because that was always my dream, my vision for myself was that I was going to leave my hometown and I was going to live in the big city. So I lived here for a while in 2010 and I made some friends, obviously, while I was here during that time. So when I was moving back to Canada from South America, I decided to stop in Toronto because my brother was living here now. I had a place to crash and decided to like visit my friends and just catch up with them. And my plan was I was going to fly back to my hometown with my brother after being in Toronto for like 2 weeks or something like that. Okay. But I decided when I got here that actually I'm not going back to my hometown. I'm gonna stay right here. Like there's absolutely no way I'm leaving this city. Like I want to be here. After hanging out with my friends and going out to new places, I was like, yeah, no, the city is where it's at. This is where I'm trying to be. Okay. So I told my brother, yeah, change of plans. I'm actually going to be staying here. So, I don't really know, how long I'm going to be crashing at your place for, but I'm not going to be traveling with you. So yeah. And my brother was so mad because he felt like I swindled him. And I feel like this is a common theme in my brother and I's relationship. But he was so mad because he was like, you know, WTF, like you were only supposed to be here for like 2 weeks. Like he has his own life, you know, he wants to be bringing girls over and whatever without having his sister like on his couch. So in that moment, I had to figure out how the hell I was gonna find a place, get money for the place, and like move out ASAP, okay? So just to give you guys timelines, I moved back to Canada in like early June, I believe, 2017. And then I moved into my condo August 1st of the same year, okay? I had no job when I moved back to Canada. I also had no money, basically, because obviously I was earning money in a lower currency when I was in South America. So a lot of my money just went to like living my life while I was there and then buying my ticket to fly back here and all of the like expenses along the way, right? So I got back here and I was like struggly AF, you guys. Like I even remember I stopped in Miami on my way back to Canada, and like the way I was struggling, I'm not even going to go into that because I stayed at a hostel, I think for like a night or something, and they asked for like a $25 deposit. I didn't have $25 to give them. I don't even know what the hell was going on with me, you guys. That was so bad. And actually, like literally this girl who I don't know at all, she's a stranger, she gave me the money. I think she was checking out of the hostel and she saw that I was struggling, so she gave me the money. And guess what, you guys? The next day, she actually came back and drove me to the airport because for some reason I wasn't able to call an Uber myself. Probably because I was broke and struggling, and I think I was trying to get my brother to help me and it wasn't working. Girl, it was a mess, okay? I was struggling. So the point is, when I tell you I had no job, I also had no money, okay? So how the hell was I going to find a luxurious condo to rent, and where was I going to get the money from to pay that rent? You know, like even if I could pay the first and last month's rent, which is kind of how it works in Toronto for rentals, you pay the first month and the last month rent at the same time. And then obviously you just pay your normal rent month to month, but you also typically have like a key deposit or sometimes other deposits as well. So I had none of that, okay? And I didn't have a job to like continue making those payments, even if I did have the money for the first and last. But I decided that I wanted to live in Toronto. I decided I wanted to live in downtown Toronto. And I decided that I wanted to live in a nice condo with a nice view and live my downtown Toronto dreams, okay? And when I had lived in Toronto in 2010, I lived downtown. I actually subletted a condo from this girl who was an international student. And I remember at the time, I could like barely afford the rent, but it was such a good experience, you guys. Like, honestly, if there's one thing that I recommend people do in their life is just live your life, okay? Explore, do all the things, make all the mistakes, because at the end of the day, that is what makes this such a rich and beautiful experience. But back to the story. So my brother ended up going back to our hometown. So he left me in his apartment in June. And I knew that I needed to figure out how I was going to get out of my brother's apartment as fast as possible so that he wouldn't be pissed off at me. So I don't even know what I was searching for, you guys. I was clearly Googling, searching for ways to make money. And I came across this girl's YouTube video who was talking about how she does medical studies for money. And basically medical studies are like you testing out medications so that they can be approved for usage in pharmacies and hospitals. Basically, in order for them to be approved to be used in like the country that the drug company is trying to get approval for. This is part of the process. So they have healthy volunteers test these drugs just to see like how does it react in your system. And then, they can get the drug approved. But even though the people who test these drugs are healthy volunteers, they still give you money. They give you kind of like an honorarium, let's say, or like a thank you. So it's not taxed, which is great. And like they literally give you a check at the end of the study period. Sometimes they split it up. So like, let's say if the study period is like 4 weeks, they'll give you like half of the money halfway through and then the other half at the end, right? So yeah, anyways, I saw that this girl had done this and she was talking about how she made like $8,000 doing one study and like $11,000 doing another one. And basically like the more time that you have to spend at the study center, like usually you have to sleep there overnight and then, they take your blood over different periods of time. That is how they determine how much they actually pay you for the study. So in Canada, they kind of have standards, I believe, for how much they pay people for these studies based on like how many nights that you stay there and also like how many times you have to return to the clinic after you leave, just to like check your blood levels or like maybe to see if the drug is still in your system or something like that. Okay. Now, just to kind of answer maybe like if people have questions about this, I never had any weird reactions to any of the drugs that I tested, okay? And I think I probably did like 3 or 4 studies in total over the entire course of my career of doing studies. But I did meet people who did do some drug studies with like hard drugs, maybe made from opioids or stuff like that, where even if they themselves didn't have a reaction, like other people around them were like having kind of adverse reactions. But the drugs that I tested were, I think one of them was maybe like a cancer drug for people who have like some type of cancer. Another one I think was for liver cirrhosis. So they were things that it's like if you don't have the disease, your body is kind of just going to process the medication and like you're not really going to have a reaction. That is, again, if you're like a healthy person. And usually like the studies that I was doing, the drugs actually are already in use in other countries, right? Like what was happening was that some companies who make generic drugs, they were just trying to get them approved, like the generic version approved for use in Canada. So that's just to explain some background on there, okay? So after watching this video of this girl who does these studies and made all this money, I was just like, oh my God, I need to see if this is something that I could do. So I started Googling to see if there were any places in Toronto where I could do this. And I ended up finding like 4 or 5 different centers where you can actually do medical studies and get paid. And I was like, wow, this is perfect. So I started applying to a few different studies at different locations. And what they do is like they ask you to come in, they do some blood work, they do like a urine sample, you answer a whole bunch of questions, and then they'll tell you like within 24 to 48 hours if you are a candidate to participate in the study. So I think I went to like 2 or 3 places and I was able to get into 2 studies for the month of July. Okay, now remember, I got to Canada in June. My brother went away to our hometown in June also. So there was a period of time where he wasn't around while I was in his place, which was great. But I was eager to get the hell out of there, as soon as possible after he came back. So I wasn't like encroaching on his lifestyle. So the good thing about these studies is that I also wasn't going to be in my brother's place for that long because I would be in the study centers for most of July, right? So that was perfect. And another thing too is that you're actually not supposed to be able to do more than one study at the same time, or like You're not supposed to do more than one study within a certain period of time, because obviously they're taking your blood and like you're testing different medications too, right? So they want to make sure that the study stuff is as pure as possible. And so what these study centers typically do is they have like a system that they're all attached to that lets them know if one of their volunteers is within the correct like period where they're allowed to participate in a study. Okay. Luckily for me, one of the study centers that I was doing a study with, they were not part of that system. So I was able to get away with doing 2 studies at the same time for the month of July. And in total, both of those studies combined would have paid me $4,000. Okay. And so that was like the perfect amount of money that I needed for my condo and just like paying my bills and stuff like that. And I also decided that I was going to get a roommate. And, you know, I'm Black. I decided I wanted to have a Black roommate too. Like, I honestly, you guys, I literally created everything that I wanted to create. Okay. And like all the resources that I needed came right at the perfect time. So I have a friend who lives in Toronto, and she was living in this condo, and I went to visit her one day and I was like, wow, oh my God, I love your place. I would love to live here. Like, this is the perfect location, whatever. And like her rent was also not really crazy. So I thought I would be able to get a unit in her building for a decent price, especially if I split it with a roommate. Like, it would be perfect because she had a roommate at the time. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. So I started looking. I found a few units in her building. I found one unit in her building that would have been perfect, but we didn't end up getting it because I guess the landlord didn't realize that rents were starting to go up and the rental market was starting to become more competitive. So he had listed the price for like way lower than what the market price was. And then people started offering him more money. And we weren't aware of that. So we ended up losing out on that unit, which sucks. But it's fine because we ended up getting another unit that was way nicer anyways. It had a beautiful view, which is another characteristic that I wanted for my condo. So, yeah. And then how I found my roommate was I posted an ad, probably I think on Facebook or like one of these like rental groups or something, or maybe on Kijiji. I don't even remember, but I posted an ad somewhere for a roommate. And then I met with a few people, and then I met who my then roommate was. And I just felt like we both seemed like, yeah, this is my person, right? So she was the perfect roommate for me at that time. She was also a flight attendant, so she wasn't even going to be like around a lot of the time, which was also great. So I found my roommate. I knew exactly where I wanted to live, you know, what building, what kind of unit. I had my way of getting the money because I was in these 2 studies, right? And so one of the studies paid like $1,350 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. What is 4,000 minus 2,500? 1,500. Yeah. Okay. So one of the studies paid 1,500 and then the other one paid 2,500. So the study that paid 1,500, like, I think I probably used a lot of that money to like catch up on my bills and just like have money to live while I was, you know, in the city. And then the other study that paid 2,500, that was the exact amount of my half of the first and last month rent for our new condo. And I just think it's crazy how that worked out, you know? Like, I just knew that I was going to live in downtown Toronto. I was going to live in a nice condo. I was going to have a great roommate that was, you know, fit the characteristics that I wanted for myself. And I got everything that I wanted, and the money that I needed to get the place also came through. But here's the crazier part, okay? Because remember, I also didn't have a job. So I'm sure you guys are wondering, like, okay, well, that's great that you were able to find this place and like get it with a roommate. How did you pay your rent going forward? Well, I also, hustled my way, updated my resume, and I started applying for jobs. And I decided that, you know what, I need a job that paid $60,000 minimum in order for me to live comfortably and like pay my rent and like whatever. That was the amount of money I decided I needed at the time. So I was like, I'm going to get a job that pays $60K. So I was able to find that. I got a contract job that literally came through probably like a day or two after I moved in to my new condo. Okay, so I moved into my condo before I even had my job. But I just knew I was going to get my job and have enough money to like pay my rent going forward. And the perfect thing about this job is that because it was a contract job, they were actually paying me weekly. And what ended up happening also is that while I was at that contract job, I got a full-time permanent job somewhere else that paid also exactly $60,000 a year. So it was just perfect. Okay, it was perfect. So everything worked out, and then I ended up moving into my condo, like I said, on August 1st. I think I started my new job a few days after that. I was able to move out of my brother's place, and like I said, I wasn't around most weekends while I was there in July, and also while my brother was there, because I was either at the studies, and when I wasn't at the studies, okay, in order to give my brother space, I would like stay at my friend's place, who became my neighbor basically because I moved into her building. So that just goes to show you guys that, like if you have 100% total faith and assuredness in what you want and your ability to get it, you absolutely can get that thing. Okay. And so the universe will conspire to bring together all of the resources, everything that you need in order to make this thing happen. And that is exactly what happened for me. And so I was able to move into my dream condo. My roommate, she had already a lot of stuff that we needed for the kitchen, like pots and pans and all that stuff. So I didn't even need to buy a lot of stuff. I only needed to get my bed, which I wasn't even able to afford. Oh my God, when I first moved in. So my roommate loaned me this inflatable bed that she had, and I probably slept on it for like a month, and it actually broke, and then I had to buy her a replacement one. But I eventually got my own bed. And then I also bought a couch for us because she brought all the other furniture. So I bought the couch. And yeah, guys, like it was just perfect. Everything worked out perfectly. And then, how I was explaining that the studies pay you like 50% in the middle and then the other half at the end, right? So I got paid $1,250 in the middle of the study, and then the other $1,250 at the end to make the $2,500, right? So because I didn't have like the full first and last month rent ready for us to secure the condo that we eventually got, my roommate also fronted me that money, and like she really just trusted me to do that. And keep in mind, like this person was a stranger, so for her to do that was also like, again, the universe working through her to help materialize my dreams. And I feel like when these things happen, the people that the universe is using, they're not even aware of it, right? Like everything feels normal for everyone. It's only you that really knows you're orchestrating this, right? It's like I'm choosing this for my reality, and it's going to happen. And then it happens. Boom. So that is the story, you guys, of how I was able to manifest my dream condo without a job and no money. Okay. The money came miraculously. The job came miraculously. The roommate came miraculously, all perfectly. Okay. Everything happened like perfectly synchronistically. And then, like I said, I was able to give my brother enough space where he wasn't even that annoyed with me at the fact that I was like in his house for longer than I said I was going to be there. And like it was just so perfect. And I was so happy because I ended up making all these new friends and just having this really great life in the city that I really wanted to be in. And I think the reason why this story is also so powerful for me is because a lot of people, they aspire to live in certain places. So being able to afford a nice condo in downtown Toronto, it's like an aspirational thing for a lot of Canadians, right? So the fact that I was able to do that, and not only once but twice, right? And like kind of maintain a lifestyle here, it really speaks to the power of like my ability to manifest things. Because truthfully speaking, like there isn't really anything exceptionally unique or special or different about me compared to a lot of the other people who may have wanted this for themselves. It's just your level of belief and your feeling of worthiness to have certain things that either makes it possible for you or not possible for you. Okay. Now, at the time that I was doing these manifestation, I was not aware of these principles. I just knew this is what I want for myself and I'm going to get it and I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen. And that is exactly what I did. So I think that is the case with a lot of things, right? But most people confine themselves to whatever, with their physical eyes, they see as possible for them based on how much money they have in their bank or what circumstance they're in right now. That is how they determine what's possible. So probably if I was that type of person, not only would I not have thought it was possible for me to like rent a luxury condo in Toronto, I probably would have even felt like I have to go back to my hometown and get a job there and, live rent-free at my mom's house until I can afford to like move back to the city. And then but I just chose that's not what I wanted for myself. Like I knew from the moment I landed, this is where I wanted to be. And that was where I ended up. So keep the faith, guys. I hope that my story inspires you. And thank you for listening to my rambling. I will try to be a bit more straightforward and concise with my future story times. But yeah, if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to leave them below. And I will see you guys in the next episode.